I always ask a question, Dr. Swamy, to the students here, that why do they leave the first two rows empty? They'll fill up everything in the back, but the first two rows. So I'm happy that the pattern continues, even in your talk. And it gives me pleasure to invite and host Dr. Subramanian Swamy to our campus to offer a talk on ethics and importance of ethics, with a particular emphasis of ethics in government. Dr. Swamy needs no introduction, but I will still say a few lines that you can love him, you can hate him, you can never ignore Dr. Swamy. Dr. Swamy is a former Minister of Commerce and Industry and former Minister of Law and Justice. He's former member of Rajya Sabha, member of Lok Sabha, and most importantly, it also gives me a pleasure that he's a former professor and continues to profess. Many of you are aware of so many cases that Dr. Swamy has undertaken, and won many cases which are of importance to us as a nation and important to us as a society. Dr. Swamy, may I welcome you to address our students at Ahmedabad. Thank you very much.
Can you hear me? Sharma and students of IIM, I'm privileged and honored to address what would be a group of students who have come after perhaps the stiffest competition that takes place in the country. I have to speak on ethics, and as a politician, ethics is a behavioral code. Essentially, naturally for human beings, because animals don't have discriminative powers. They cannot analyze, they cannot infer, they cannot deduce. So therefore, it's the privilege of the human being that they can use their intelligence to not only understand the phenomenon, but also invent, recreate, modify, and so many other qualities. Humans can be truthful or not truthful, they can be honest or dishonest, they can be decent or indecent. I mean, life is full of options that you have to face, and the choice of that option requires some compass, some direction, and that's what ethics is supposed to provide. Ethics can be also at the personal level, or it can be at the national level too. And they need not necessarily be the same. For example, I may be an honest person, upright, clean, truthful, all that. But faced with a social wrong, I may not express my voice, I may not express my opposition. There you have personal ethics, but you don't have what would be called as national ethics. Manmohan Singh is an example of a man who has personal ethics, but no national ethics. He personally is an honest, upright person, very decent. But he did not exert himself. When wrong things were being done, in his watch. People often wondered why, because he had so much power. The Prime Minister's chair has so much power. Let me tell you that it's a misconception that numbers and strength matter in society. What matters in society is the mindset, how you are made to think. Take, for example, the question of strength. In a circus, in a cage, you will find 5 lions and a thin, wiry ringmaster will come into the cage, close the door, and then he'll order these lions to climb up on a bench. And then he will direct them to open their mouth and he'll put his head on each one of them. Of course, everybody in the circus will clap. Why don't these lions bite his head off or pounce on him and kill him? It's because you've been brought up. These lions have been brought up from the cub stage to obey. They don't know their own strength. In lion, the word for lion in Sanskrit is Singh. So Manmohan Singh is one such person. He has power, but he doesn't know how to use it. So I am saying that the preparation of the mind is the most important thing in life. And therefore, when we talk about ethics, it has to come with a mindset to enforce that ethics, not only on yourself, but on society. And you have to analyze very carefully. Ethical means what in what occasion. And Lord Rama hid behind a tree after instructing Sugriv to wear a garland, and then told Sugriv to get into combat with Bali, and then hid behind a tree and killed Bali. Most unethical behavior. And in fact, Bali, while dying, said to Rama, "You are supposed to be a Kshatriya, Maryada Purushottam. And like a coward, you hide behind a tree and kill me while I am having a battle with Sugriv. Where is your honor? Where is your valor? Where is your ethics? Where is your morality? You should have come before me and challenged me and would have had a battle. If I died in that battle, I would have died with happiness." So what is Rama's answer? Well, to his answer, he is asked questions, A, by Bali while dying, and then later on by Lakshmana. Rama tells Bali, "Who are you to talk to me about morality and ethics? You stole Sugriv's wife, you captured, you carried out a coup and took over his kingdom, and then you tell me about morality. Morality is only between two moral individuals, not between a moral and immoral person." In the case of Lakshman, who says, "Why could we befriend Bali, who was a much better person than this debauch called Sugriv?" Rama says, "Bali had the army and he pledged it to Ravan. He had a military agreement with Ravan. So therefore he said, I have to go to Lanka to save Sita. And I need an army. The only army was that of Bali. And he was pledged to Ravan. So therefore I had to install Sugriv and then take the army and go to Lanka. So for the larger national good, I had to do this." These are all such gems of moral dilemmas that you see in Mahabharata and Ramayana. I don't know whether in an anglicized place like the IIM you teach these things, but you should, because the gems of moral dilemma you see in our schools. Take the case of Draupadi being stripped in public view, and the great Bhishmacharya, who is the warrior of warriors, watches. And when this question is put to Bhishmacharya, he says, what could I do? The Pandavas had a contract and they pledged Draupadi in that contract, they were playing dice, and I had to abide by the outcome of that game of dice. Was he right with that? Where's the ethics in that? Because Lord Krishna disagrees. And in the battle he explains to Arjuna that you have to kill your teacher. You know that Arjuna was always had these nagging doubts all the time. It's a Hindu disease in my opinion. Sitting in the middle of the battle and wondering whether he killed or not killed. So, Krishna explains to him that there is a larger calling than just your personal ethics. That is, when it comes to saving the nation, when it comes to saving the honor of women, there you don't go by these personal ethics. Same thing with when the same Mahabharata, Karna gets off his chariot and then bends over to lift the wheel of the chariot. Krishna tells Arjuna, kill him now. He says, how can I do that? Something Kshatriyas never do. He's got off, he's not defending himself, he's bending over. I can't kill him now. Then Krishna says, where was your morality when Draupadi's sari was being taken off? She was helpless. This is Karna who was organizing. So you have to kill him. Like that, there are large numbers of such situations. Mahatma Gandhi taught us the power of peaceful struggle. Great contribution he made. But could that have been used against Hitler? If you had done satyagraha against Hitler, do you think that you would have been successful? You were able to do it with the British because A, they were smaller in numbers in India, and B, there was a democracy in Britain where you could stir the consciousness or the conscience of the people there, which Mahatma Gandhi managed to do. You have to see when you have ethics, whether those ethics are shared by people whom you confront. Then only those ethics have meaning. Otherwise, these ethics will become a method of committing suicide. In political and economic development, the system that fosters or provides for the maximum option for ethics is democracy and competitive market economy. I'm not saying that it does, it is an ethical system, but I'm saying that the system which accommodates ethics is democracy and market economy. While dictatorships and controlled economies pervert ethics. Fascism, for example, was a dictatorship. You had a Holocaust. Stalin's communism was a dictatorship. Millions of people died for no reason or for no fault of theirs. You have seen that societies don't prosper in that societies don't prosper when you have dictatorships. The best laboratory example is East and West Germany. Both were one country in just before 1945. Both were equally destroyed. Both the same people, the German people. After World War II, they were divided into two. One became West Germany, the other became East Germany. One adopted democracy and market economy. Another adopted dictatorship of the Soviet variety and controlled economy. Those of you who have been to Germany, to both parts of Germany today, which has become one after 1990, you will find what a difference in the economic development of these two parts of Germany. The West Germany became a developed country out of ruins, while East Germany is still one of the poorest parts of the world. The same thing you will see in the Soviet Union. When the Soviet Union was there was so much propaganda. There used to be a great Marxist leader in India called Ahmedabad, who used to constantly tell me that in the Soviet Union there is no inflation, there is no unemployment, there is no poverty. In August 1991, I had my revenge and I told him now there is no Soviet Union also. It broke up into 16 countries. And see how the development of these 16 countries are today. You will see that all that was propaganda. And how many people had to suffer. Gulag, Alexander Solzhenitsyn has documented it. How many people have to undergo so much tribulation just for having a different view. So, perversion takes place in the ethical system when there is coercion. When the system works on consent, that system is less likely to have perversion in ethics than a system which is based on coercion. That is democracy, where it is perfectly practiced. It's a system based on consent. Market economy is where you bring out the best competitive behavior, and thereby in that the best services. But both these systems require to be regulated, not controlled but regulated. Ground rules established, where the ground rules make it possible for all to participate in it. If tomorrow the government of India made the mistake of permitting Walmart to come to India, would that be part of the adherence to the competitive market system? No, not at all. Because Walmart gets capital or loans from banks in the United States at 2% interest rate. Our traders here get it at 12% interest rate, if not 18% interest rate. And Walmart comes to this country with cheap capital, and then it participates in our cheap labor pool with our domestic traders. And as a consequence, that cheap labor pool becomes more expensive. So our traders are put to a double disadvantage. And therefore it's not a level playing field. It is not a fair competitive market. So therefore, till that happens, we cannot allow Walmart to our country. One way of allowing it is to reduce our interest rates to 2% for our traders. But now I don't think that is easily possible, and certainly not with Raghuram Rajan as governor of the bank. I think it's time he goes back to Chicago. get somebody more oriented towards the realities of the Indian system. Or the Americans allowed Indian enterprise to go to America to build roads, houses, and have the liberty to draw on the finance or the loans or to get loans from the American banks. And allow our companies to take cheap labor from here for construction work in the United States. But the US doesn't allow that. They say it's an immigration problem for them. So they can come with the cheap labor, the cheap capital, and take part in or utilize our cheap labor. But we can't take our cheap labor there and take advantage of their cheap capital. So ethically speaking, we cannot allow this. So I'm saying that even though the market economy, even though democracy has tremendous opportunity for working on consent and therefore ethical behavior, we have to ensure that the regulations are such that the field is a level playing field. Now, let me also say that there is a contradiction between democracy and market. Market is dominated by those who have capital, and that's a minority. And democracy is dominated by voters who are relatively poor. So therefore, what is the need of democracy is when you are listening to the voices of the relatively large group, is not the requirements of the few who have capital in the market. And therefore, you have to be very, very careful that the market, those in the market with capital, do not support democracy. Do not buy politicians, which has been happening so far. Some of our industrialists have grown very fast by just buying politicians. It's cheaper to do that than to produce goods. So this contradiction is also to be resolved in a system like that. Now, one of the greatest problems we have today is the question of corrupting our ethics by corruption. The corruption has now become a huge problem in our country. We have about 120 lakh crores in foreign bank accounts illegally kept. The total income tax bill is only 2 lakh crores. So that means 60 times the income tax revenue is abroad. And if you could bring that money back, I think for 60 years you don't need income tax. We have corruption within our country, which is having a multidimensional effect on the economy. For example, the quality of goods and services you get is much lower because of corruption. Take for example a road. If the tender is manipulated on the basis of corruption, you are going to get a road which will wash out in the next rainfall. The same way, corruption distorts your investment priorities. How is that? When a person acquires ill-gotten money or undeclared money or black money, it is called, what does he spend it on? He can't invest it, except perhaps in property. But more often you find that his lifestyle becomes luxurious. Huge house, marble floors, television everywhere, air conditioner, magnificent modern technology being installed. All these things, these expenditures raise the profits of companies which produce these luxury goods. And as a consequence, the rate of profit going up, future investment starts going into these industries. An analysis which I carried out several years ago, must be worse now, showed me that 70% of our investment goes directly or indirectly into these luxury goods industry. A country which has such a large number of poor people, which should be producing goods which are essential for the poor people, is ending up producing or investing 70% directly or indirectly into industries which serve a very few of the rich. So it's a distortion of your investment priority. It causes inflation. Today, black money, because we have carelessly allowed for what is not allowed in most parts of the world, forward trading in agricultural products. The black money is used to buy in the wholesale market agricultural products, which are then stored, creating an artificial shortage, prices shooting up. Again, the same way, we have created a derivative called participatory notes, which most people have heard of. A participatory note is something which no other country in the world issues. When it comes to corruption, we are geniuses. And this derivative is a piece of paper. You take cash in a suitcase, put it on the counter of Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, or US Fidelity Investments. And they will give you a piece of paper authorized by the government of India in foreign countries, called a participatory note, which will not have a serial number, which will not have your name, but it will have just the amount that you gave. It will be worth a certain amount. You bring it back to India and give a photocopy to the Reserve Bank. They will give you a receipt. With that receipt, you can go to the stock market and invest in shares. Once the share market booms, you sell out, you get the money in rupees, you go back to the Reserve Bank and say, I invested in participatory notes. Under the law, the Reserve Bank is bound to convert it into foreign exchange. You take it out. That is, money goes out of our country through the Hawala route, and then from Hawala route it goes to your banks in Switzerland and 70 other countries which have secret banking like Virgin Islands, Cayman Islands, etc. And then you take out that money and bring it back to India and invest in your stock market and earn a profit. Huge profit or capital gains. If you left this money, for example, in the Switzerland bank, you won't get interest payments. You will get a service charge imposed on you instead. Switzerland makes a lot of money out of Indian black money. They get 2% from those who put black money there, and then they take the Indian money and put it in the American bond market and get 4%. And 6% Switzerland earns without doing any work. That's why it's such a happy place it is. So this participatory note destabilizes your stock market. The American depression would never have affected India at all because we had no connection with the property market. In fact, the then governor Reddy had ensured that our banks do not invest much in the property market. And therefore we were secure. When the collapse took place, it went to It went to Europe because of the fact that these investment banks were connected. You know that how American crisis took place because all these bright business school graduates like yourself persuaded banks who had given loans to houses for housing, purchase of houses, saying that why are you freezing the amount of money that you have lent out? We will buy your mortgage and for at a 10% discount, and we'll give you the cash. It's just 90% of that money we'll give you back. So banks found themselves with now liquid money again. So they said, why not lend out more? So they lent out for more house purchase. And this process went on, and soon enough, the people who could pay back these loans for sure, that list exhausted. So then they transferred to people dubious capacities to pay back. That's why it was called the subprime loan. And one day a small recession took place, and these subprime loan takers, they were not able to pay back the installments. So these investment banks which had collected the mortgage at a discount, they suddenly were saddled with houses which they could not sell. The housing market collapsed, and the investment banks like Lehman Bank had to wind up. And this spread to Europe, but it could not spread to India till there was an investment starvation in the United States, or the liquidity shortage in the United States, and our participatory loans went to these countries. They pulled out of our stock market, now stock market collapsed. So here is a case of a totally unethical behavior of making black money, sending it abroad, and then bringing it back to us. And in the process, the corrupt politicians create derivatives like the participatory loan, and thereby the country has suffered today for the last 5 years. I would add one more aspect of this, and that aspect is that when a politician or a top-level businessman sends money to abroad illegally through the hawala, most often it is through Dubai. And in Dubai, most of the hawala operators have to cooperate with the ISI of Pakistan. And therefore, Pakistan today knows which politician has which bank account and how much, and what the numbers are also, bank account numbers. And this creates a major national security problem for the country. So I'm showing to you how small ethical behavior then ricochets and develops into such a big national security problem. So why does this happen? It happens because if your mindset is a purely material progress oriented, then material progress, if it becomes an engine itself, then you are bound to develop greed. And if you develop greed, then corruption is inevitable. And if corruption takes place in the country, then of course the nation becomes completely weakened. So what do we need to do? Well, material progress is essential, but it has to be moderated in society by some ethical values or spiritual values. After all, ethical values will have to come out of spiritual values. So there has to be a harmonization of spiritual advancement and material progress. And such a society becomes a society which is stable, lasts for very long. The ancient Indian rishis devised this system. Two great rishis called Riku and Bhardwaja, they put together a system which is now, of course, over the years, over the centuries, degenerated. But the fact is that the core principle for ethics was embedded in that. And that is that the society will not be graded by the material prosperity of the individual. The highest place in society will be reserved for those not with maximum material wealth, but those who have achieved something for society, who are learned people, and who have made the necessary sacrifice. When I was first went to Harvard as a graduate student, an American student of mine asked me, "Could you tell me why the Indian people followed Mahatma Gandhi?" I said, "I am not able to understand why you are asking me this question. What is wrong with Mahatma Gandhi?" So he took me by surprise by saying, "Well, how can he be your leader when he is not properly dressed? He is hopelessly underdressed." I said, "In the United States, do leaders have to be very well dressed?" He said, "Absolutely. If a leader has not got the best tie and the best suit and shining shoes, we will not regard him well." In fact, Richard Nixon lost one debate, television debate, to John Kennedy because he came without shaving his evening beard, or the 5 o'clock shadow as it's called. So here is a society which is recognizing, in India, I talk about Indian society, which recognizes a person as your leader even though he is dressed only with a piece of cloth. I said, if Mahatma Gandhi came to America, what would you do? He said, we'll put him in jail for indecent exposure. Now, that is a difference between the Western society and us. I am not sure that the Western society today demonstrates that the way they have structured the society, they are happier than us. I find large numbers of people now flocking the ashrams of our Swamijis. In fact, in America you have now lots of Swamijis having ashrams. The Americans are quite undiscriminating when it comes to choosing any of them. In fact, I get calls from various people asking me to come and give a lecture. If I tell them that no, I am not in a position to come, they think it's because I want more money, so they offer me double the fee that they offered originally. I see ashrams all over for yoga, meditation. I now find that people are coming to our country. There's a very famous Hollywood actress by name Julia Roberts. She came here, I'm sure you have heard of her. She came here to India for a shooting. And she wanted to go to an ashram. She named the ashram. She went there. And she told the Swamiji there, I have won Oscars, I have millions of dollars, but I am not happy. And then the Swamiji kept her there at the ashram to teach her how to become happy. And after 3 weeks, she went back to Hollywood and surprised everyone by actually converting to Hindu religion, saying, this is the only religion which taught me how to be happy. I am saying this has got nothing to do with religion. That is perhaps her extreme step. But the fact is that this moderation or this harmonization between spiritual progress and material progress, or spiritual advancement and material progress, that is ultimately the one that is going to make you ethical in your behavior. The day it becomes a driving force that more money you have, the better you are going to be, or a more socially important person, I think that is the time when this country you will find a moral degeneration. And it's happening already in various sections of our society. So, unless we extol sacrifice, we will not be able to build a society which is ethical. In our own country, in our history, we have consciously recognized sacrifice. Rana Pratap of Rajasthan, Udaipur, is regarded very, very highly. He's a hero for the Rajasthanis and in fact the whole of India. But he never won a battle for us. He ultimately was so badly defeated that he had to escape to the forest, and for his food he had to convert grass into paste and then make it into chapatis and live on that. His cousin brother Man Singh lived in a palace because Akbar accepted him after he accepted Akbar as the Badshah of India. But Rana Pratap refused to accept. But society today remembers Rana Pratap. Our society remembers Rani Jhansi, who did not take us to victory. Our society recognized Subhash Chandra Bose, who did not win us any victories, but we still remember him. Because consciously in our ethos is this value for sacrifice, which you will find very few societies. And if we are a continuing civilization today, whatever may be the baggage we have acquired, which we have to now shed off, the fact of the matter is that this is a continuing civilization. And it is because of this ethical standards that we have worked out by balancing spiritual advancement with material progress, and therefore extolling the principle of sacrifice. Mahatma Gandhi, when he was underclothed, was representing that sacrifice. And therefore I urge you, particularly your IIM students, that if you are interested in an ethical life, I am not asking you to commit suicide in the name of sacrifice. But I certainly would like you to moderate your behavior all the time, considering this aspect. Now, otherwise what you're going to have is what one of my former students from IIT, Delhi, ended up doing. And his name is Rajat Gupta. He rose to great heights. He was my student at IIT. He wanted a recommendation to get into Harvard Business School, which I gave him. He got in, did brilliantly, went to great heights of McKinsey's chief as well as Goldman Sachs. And then, for a small amount, he engaged in insider trading, and all his work of philanthropy, everything went down the drain. Today he is facing a 3-year sentence in jail. While his trial was going on, a lot of leaders from the world wrote to the judge saying he's lenient. He has done a lot for society. And the judge in his order says that I am impressed by the number of people who are looking for him. But I am all the more convinced now, if a person enjoys so much confidence of so many people, then he should not be doing what he did. And therefore, all the more reason I have to sentence him. The sentence of 3 years in jail. Why did Rajat Gupta do this? He didn't need to do it. But somewhere in his consciousness, according to friends, I've not been able to see him, but his friends tell me he had this driving craze to become the richest Indian in the United States. And that propelled his greed. And that greed ultimately made him do the mistakes he did. So I would say, therefore, how does one become an evolved person to understand what is ethical behavior and what should be ethical behavior to talk? And in that I will summarize the end by stating that today it is being taught in foreign universities, but in our country we have always had this rishis had laid it down a long time ago, that intelligence is a multi-dimensional concept. What we are taught in most of our universities is only how to develop your cognitive intelligence. Physics, mathematics, management science, inventory control, financial management, that sort of thing. These are cognitive sciences, and you assimilate knowledge of a cognitive variety. What you see is what you explain. But there are other intelligences which are now being taught in some of the advanced education schools, and I think if it is not being taught here, somewhere you should consider teaching it. The second dimension of intelligence is called emotional intelligence, where you are taught how to express your views to the other person in order to enable him to be converted to your point of view. It's possible that you may not be able to convert a person, but in the event you thought that he's a person who could change his views, which you thought was wrong in the first place, there is a way of which you put across your arguments, and that is called emotional intelligence, which is now being taught to managers in the United States. The third kind of dimension of intelligence is social intelligence, where you engage in activity which is not harmful to society. You don't produce things which may give you a quick profit, but harm society in the end. For example, if you were to build a factory and pump in a lot of smoke into the air, you may get profit, but the smoke would cause bad health to the society living around and near the factory. Or you may build an orchard and encourage a friend to start a beehive next door. Your activity would have an impact on his being able to produce honey easily. So these complementarities in our production system comes in through the application of your social intelligence. Don't engage in activity which will harm society, and in fact engage in activity which will modify and improve society. The fourth is called moral intelligence, that do not engage in activity which will be at the cost, unfairly at the cost of somebody else, or by betraying somebody else, or by harming somebody else. This is called emotional, moral intelligence. Fifth is called spiritual intelligence. And spiritual intelligence is perhaps the most powerful of all the intelligences, which is not taught to most people. But in the old days, in the ashrams of the rishis and munis, this used to be taught. And that is the concept which is today gaining ground around the world, that around the earth there is a cosmos, and that cosmos has all the knowledge that you need to know, or will ever get to know, past, future, present. And if you can train your mind to dip into that or connect into that, you will be able to do things which the ordinary human being is not able to do. And that the Americans today call as the neural Wi-Fi, by which your brain connects to the cosmos. And that's why this meditation, this yoga and all has been taught to train your mind to be able to dip into that. So these 5 intelligences are an important part of your ethical construct, and once you acquire that, once you train your mind to that, ethical behavior will become easy to comprehend. Otherwise, this narrow vision of ethics, being truthful, not telling lies, etc., is of limited value. What you need is in social behavior. What you need is in your pursuits, how to constantly monitor your activity against the requirements of ethics. So this is, in my opinion, the most important thing for your happiness in the future, that you cannot become happy if you pursue one-dimensionally material progress. You must know in life to take the necessary risks to see that you are able to achieve all your goals without making sacrifices of fundamental ethical principles. That requires the development of artificial intelligence. This is what I wanted to tell you. I'll be happy to take any questions. Thank you very much.
How many of you have a question? Can I have a show of hands? So, I'm going to request Narayan, who's also played an important part in bringing Dr. Swamy here. If you can, we'll take just 2 minutes. If you can write those questions, we'll sort of moderate them, and then please have the questions around ethics and not around political figures. This very important question. I think this question should be important to everybody, and a little question. It says, sir, what are the major things that the leaders of tomorrow need to focus on for effective nation building?
You have given up hope for the nations of leaders of today. You wouldn't leaders of tomorrow. I think all leaders, number one, require to see themselves as national persons. This country has suffered a lot because of the sectional outlook. The influence of caste, the influence of language has in fact harmed our country even in national security. For instance, take the issue of Sri Lanka, because the country, the previous government of UPA had to pander to its coalition partner in Tamil Nadu. We created conditions in which our boycotting that country in various forums led to the Chinese and the Pakistanis establishing a beachhead there. And that is having a negative impact on our national security. Same thing is with Bengal and Bangladesh and a variety of other states issues. I think first and foremost, the leaders of India should have a national perspective, that the nation comes first and everything else comes second. The second perspective is outlook that places all our concerns in the form of what is achievable. Now that's easy to say, but certainly I think some things are achievable, some things are not achievable. We need to shed the baggage of the past, and that is achievable. We need to understand what we are. That's achievable. Now, fortunately, modern science has told us that we are all one people. The DNA research, which is published now in the Journal of Genetics around the world, both in England and the United States, and of course in India and Mysore, show that whether we are from the south or the north or east or west, we are one people. The British during the 200 years created a myth that we are basically two nations, one the Dravidian nation and one the Aryan nation. And both these are pure concoctions. And this has led to a lot of loss of energy in the application of this history. So we got to change that and see ourselves as one. Even surprisingly, the DNA of a Brahmin and the DNA of a scheduled caste is the same. And that's no surprise, because originally the caste, the Varna system was not based on birth. In fact, if it was based on birth, then how do you explain Veda Vyasa, who was born to a fisherwoman, becoming a Maharishi who wrote the Mahabharata? Or Valmiki, who was born in a Dalit family, rose to become a great Rishi and write the Ramayana? Or the greatest Rishi we had was not a Brahmin. It was Vishwamitra, who was born in a Kshatriya home. So this whole caste hierarchy, this Varna system, of course now become out of date because it's no more people are seeing it as a discipline-oriented system, but a birth-based system, which it never was. So we have to get over that and regard ourselves as one people. Even Muslims and Hindus have the same DNA. And the implications of that, many people get angry when I state it. It only means that Muslims are also descendants of Hindus. And if anyone can prove to me wrong on that, I'll be happy. But I have done the research and I come to that conclusion that the DNA study shows the same. And these researches are also published. And you can go to Google and get these researches. You don't have to put very much for it. So, this national identity, that we are one people, that has to be fostered by the leaders of tomorrow, and also of course the leaders of today. And third thing is that the language of the future, let me tell you, is going to be Sanskrit, because the NASA has in its work on the computers, particularly the advanced stages of the computer called the artificial intelligence, has come to a conclusion that the only language which is truly computer friendly is Sanskrit. And that is published in their Journal of Artificial Intelligence, and you can again get it accessed from Google. So Sanskrit is a language of the future. And Sanskrit has vocabulary in all Indian languages, including Tamil. I once took out a dictionary of Tamil and with Mr. Karunanidhi, and I counted on a random sample 41% of the words in Sanskrit were also there in Tamil. Of course, Karunanidhi told me that Sanskrit stole it from Tamil, but that doesn't matter. But I pointed out to him that his name was also Sanskrit, Karuna and Nidhi, both are Sanskrit words. So this common vocabulary, in the case of Kannada it is 60%, in the case of Malayalam it is 75%, in the case of Bengali it is 90% Sanskrit words. So in my opinion, you should consciously propagate, if you don't learn it yourself, you should propagate that learning of Sanskrit is desirable. And therefore, I think these three qualities, that is number one, that we are all Indians. Number two, the correct history of India. The correct history of India has not been written. Most of it is bogus, lopsided. There have been so many things which are falsely stated in our history. So many things which are not stated at all. You see, this fact was brought to me by a Saudi Arabian student at Harvard, who asked me one day that, could you explain to me why India is still 80% Hindu? And I thought it was a very funny question. I asked him, why are you asking me this question? He told me that we are in fact researching that wherever Islam went, it was successful in converting 100% of the population to Islam. Iran, Zoroastrians, 100% Islam. Then Babylon, Mesopotamia, which today we call as Iraq, 100% Islam. Egypt, 100% Islam. And even Europe took 50 years for the Christians to convert to 100% Christianity. But in India, 800 years of Islamic rule, 200 years of Christian rule through the British. We are still 80% Hindu. So you wanted to know the explanation for that. And when you go into the correct history, you find that every region, sometime or the other, people were resisting. When the Caliph of Umar sent his commanders here to conquer India, it was the Gujaratis, Pratyahara, and the Chalukyas of Maharashtra and Andhra who defeated them. This is not recorded in our history. We are told that Alexander came and conquered India, which is utter rubbish. He got a thrashing and he went back and is supposed to have committed suicide. So these truths have to be known, and you must know your correct history, and you have to be written by Indians. Of course, we can have debate, we can have discussions, disagreements, but it should not be the present history. So we are all Indians. This must be propagated by the future leaders. 2, the correct history of India. And 3, the fostering of Sanskrit. In my opinion, any future leader does this and succeeds, he will become one of the greatest leaders India has ever produced.
Thank you. I'm going to combine a few questions. Do you subscribe to this view of greater good? Because this is something, I'm going to read the question exactly. It says, you said is it okay to allow the acts of bribery or unethical acts for eventual goal of betterment? For instance, in light of winning elections, minor infractions of law are common. Are these acceptable? So the question here is that should people, in view of the greater good, allow for smaller infractions or unethical behaviors?
No unethical behavior should be condoned unless the person confesses to it and expresses regret and accepts any punishment the society gets. There is no such thing as minor infraction and major infraction. You break the law, you break the law. There is a proportionate punishment for it. You break the law when you cross the red light, but that is 100 rupees you pay and that's the end of it. But generally speaking, in my opinion, there is no question of ever overlooking for the greater good any breakage in the law. Even in the battlefield, those infractions that you commit or the breaks in the violation of the law you do is accountable subsequently.
So this is a follow-up that somebody has written, and how does that reconcile with the principles of Sri Ram and Krishna, which you had just mentioned?
There is no forgiving there. He had to make a choice. And he made a choice. And it is a conscious choice. And there are ground rules. As Rama said, morality can only be discussed between two moral individuals. If a person is immoral, then to fight him, you need not adopt the moral principles you adopt yourself. Now take for example, Prithviraj Chavan. The Hindu moral principle of warfare was, if you win and the loser express regret, then you forgive him, hand him back everything and say goodbye to him. Prithviraj Chavan did that with Muhammad Ghori. How many times? 16 times or 17 times. I don't know. Even more than one is bad enough. So that is not forgivable. That was an error which he lived, the whole country has lived to regret. So I don't think that the question is, in the case of Krishna and the case of Rama, they explain the reason why they took this decision. It is not to condone it, but they explain that the greater good, as you promised, is not the greater good. He said that any good I can do is stunted the moment I don't do this. So it is a question of the good winning, not the greater good, but the good, the ethical winning in a battle which Bhishmacharya in his last days when he was lying on the arrow explained as apad dharma. He said apad dharma is when dharma is suspended temporarily.
Thank you. This is a question which I was going to ask, but somebody has written it, so it's a good thing. It is, how would you ensure that the government behaves ethically? So, for instance, there are so many infractions which are brought to light every day. What are some of the interventions that the government has in place, or possibly could have in place in future for several government projects which are allocated for business almost every year?
But take the case of corruption. What is it the government can do? First is, government should eliminate discretionary power where it is not necessary. And that can be done by the modern technology of computers. For example, there was a time which you people will not remember because it was before your time, when it was impossible to get a railway reservation without bribing first the station master, then the ticket counter man, and finally the ticket collector on the train. Today, thanks to computers, we do not have to go to that extent. Of course, even there's some manipulation, but the kind of corruption we had in those days and what we have today is more. Previously, you had to go to an office to get a form, government office to get some form for something or the other, say a patta or something. There you had to first bribe the chaprasi outside to go and wake up the officer who's sleeping inside. Then you have to go inside and bribe the officer to move the file. Today, if you can download it in your home printer, the same form, online, you cut all that out. So, one step, which is not a major step, but it is a step to reduce corruption, is to remove this discretionary power of civil servants in giving you or not giving you something which you can get automatically by these methods, these modern methods, the e-governance method. The second is, and I find a blackboard, I would demonstrate it. If you are going to catch the corrupt, don't catch as a priority the small corrupt, the police constable, the babu and so on. Catch the biggest people and throw the book at them. I can show by mathematics, and if you read my book on corruption and corporate governance in India, I have given the mathematics of it, based on expected value and the probability of detection. That if you can catch the biggest person, no matter, and throw the book at him, no matter how small the probability was to catch such people, the effect will be that everybody will feel that if that person can be caught, who am I? I'll be caught in no time. It will automatically have an effect. This is the American system, where when they caught on Enron, they caught Mr. Skilling, they put his handcuff on him. Martha Stewart was a very well-known socialite, And on television, I think she used to come for cooking or something like that. She only overheard in a cocktail party somebody telling somebody that this company is going to sell its stakes very soon to another company. She went back home and telephoned her stockbroker saying that I have shares of this company, please sell it tomorrow first thing. And on that basis, and the fact that the stockbroker conveyed this to the authorities, Martha Stewart went for 6 months to jail as a common criminal. And many people wondered, how can you call this insider trading? She is in a cocktail party and you overhear this, and then they said, no, insider trading means unfair access to information. So, these are examples which make it, in our country, big people catching is very, very tough. I am after some big people and I hope to achieve it very soon. There's one very, very big person who started a company with which you people in IIM should be ashamed of yourself that you can't do the same thing. That person, I should say. That person set up with her son a 5 lakh rupee company, and within 1 year acquired another company without paying 1 rupee, 5,000 crores worth of real estate owning company. Now you tell me, is that possible? It's not possible. No management school teaches that. Even Vadra School of Management does not teach that. So people say, why are you going after that person? I say, because I catch them, everybody down the line is going to be afraid. If that can happen here, it can happen. So this is second. Third, repeat, material progress minus spiritual advancement will land you in greed, and greed will land you in corruption. If you want a long-term solution to corruption, you have to change society where material prosperity is not the determinant of social status. That is the third thing that we say. Yes. Yes. I can make it clear, no problem.
Next question, this is again, 2 people have written almost same question. The question is that you mentioned that ethics can only be followed when both people are morally sound, not when one person and the other. In industry, there is competition, and that could also then result in justification. When people engage in immoral behavior or unethical behavior, they will justify it by the other party saying. So what is your take on?
No, there you need a referee. You need a regulator. And that's why I don't believe in free enterprise. I believe in market economy, where there is an umpire who judges these things. And we have to ensure that the competition or the competitiveness is on a level playing field. And that's the only way to ensure it. You cannot allow a small company to be snowed in by a large company. You have to intervene and see that the level playing field is established.
Was there an ethical dilemma that you faced in life ever, a most difficult one, and how you handled it?
No. The only dilemma I ever faced in my life was a small one, whether to cancel my dinner engagement with my wife for attending a public meeting of the party. And of course I got help and I went back, but then that was a small moral dilemma. But otherwise, before I get into anything, I've already analyzed it, and then only I get into it, and then I have no hesitation. Then as Dronacharya told Arjuna, what do you see when he was taking aim on a bird? He says, I see the iris of the eye of the bird and nothing else. So that single pointedness, as mentioned in Gita, is what you need. Once you get into action, then no hesitation. No Arjuna disease should affect you.
You still have given us a very difficult moral situation, unethical or ethical situation that you faced, or something.
I have not really faced, because I have analyzed these things before I take action. And there is, I can't think of it right now. If I think of it, I'll send you an email.
So does reciprocating an unethical behavior with another unethical behavior is justified?
Depends on the situation. If a person engages in unethical behavior with you, you don't have to respond by ethical behavior unless the circumstances are such. For example, if you're a parent and your child behaves in something unethical, you try to correct it by a small punishment, and the child also then reforms. But if it's a unethical behavior by a colleague, then you don't respond immediately, but somewhere along the line you will get an opportunity. And I found this in life. Whenever somebody has behaved very unethically with me, I don't get immediately an opportunity to do anything, but one day the matter lands in my hand or in my lap, and I'm able to respond and put him in his place. So you will get these opportunities. You've got to have that faith.
One last question, interesting one. Is the concept of neural Wi-Fi scientifically proven?
Very much so. Please go to Google and type spiritual intelligence. They will give you a set of books and you buy them and read them. They have been established by, in fact it started with experiments on yogis, and today it is a widespread scientific study, and you can have a look at it throughout the country.
Thank you, Dr. Swamy. Thank you very much. We had a in-depth chat in the morning with Dr. Swamy, and but Dr. Swamy is always free and frank, and he has continued to be. I was telling him his popularity with people is because he is free and frank. So we want to thank you for being free and frank about the ethical dilemmas and ethical issues. Overall, I think our biggest takeaway is training the mind. I think if one can train mind and understand the various type of intelligences which Dr. Swamy presented to us. And also, I think one biggest takeaway for all of us, because you're all in that platform of Indian Institute of Management Ahmedabad, is I think we should promise ourselves and we should say it out loud that we're going to do things, whenever it is, nation first. So I think we should be doing things with nation first. I know placement is calling, but still, nation first. Thank you very much.